Hey, welcome everyone. We will call this meeting open today, and we will begin with karakia. Tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki waho, tuia ki roto, tuia ki te here tangata, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te au, haumie, huie, taiaki. So yeah, welcome along to our council meeting today. We have one apology from Councillor Kevin Malcolm today, and somebody care to they said that. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Kelleher seconded, all in favour, against, carried. Councillor Laws has not apologised, but and is likely to appear, I'd imagine. So we will see him in due course. We do have public forum today, and we're fortunate to have two people come to public forum to speak. We've got Mr. Ray Parker, and I understand that he will be speaking about the Taieri Flood and Drainage Scheme and rates. But correct me if I'm wrong when it's your chance to speak. And then we have Pierre Marasti from Extinction Rebellion. So Mr. Parker, if you would like to come forward and just sit up here. Yep, you're welcome to have a seat down there, or you can stand if you prefer standing when you're presenting. Either way is totally fine. Welcome.
Thank you.
As you know, I've just outlined there will be 5 minutes for you to present, and then we can ask questions of clarification. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson Robertson, and good afternoon, fellow councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today on the 2024 annual plan. I obviously know many of you from the presentations here before, but welcome to the new councillors I haven't met, and well done on taking up the challenge of leading our local community in what are sort of very challenging times. For those who don't know me, I'm Ray Parker. Together with my wife and family, we own a 220 hectare, 600 cow dairy farm located in the West Taieri Drainage Zone that is subject to the West Taieri Drainage and Lower Taieri Flood targeted rate schemes. When we purchased our farm in 2006, my ORC rates were approximately $8,000 per annum. The rates indicator for the year under review is approximately $68,000 per annum. That's a 750% increase over that time at an average of 13.5% per annum. For many of you and your senior executive, you'll be thinking that I'm here to simply chirp on about the same old stuff I present time after time that I'm here. Well, in fact, I'm not. Having watched the FY24 annual plan workshop online, and also having watched the recording of Simon Parkes and Colin Sker's presentation at the Sustainability and Resilience Committee meeting, and indeed the quality of the interaction with councillors at that meeting, I have completely changed my approach to today's meeting. Those two meetings indicate to me that finally, there is a level of understanding amongst councillors, the existing CEO and the CEO designate, of the unsustainability of the current Taieri targeted rating system, and indeed the inequity of ongoing rate increases faced by too few, whilst there has been no traction to date on getting the matter resolved. I was absolutely relieved to hear the vast majority of you indicate your support for a review and a freeze on the targeted rate scheme for the FY24 year. My take from the workshop discussion is there was unanimous support for the review, and my understanding from my discussions with Mr. Byron and Mr. Saunders is that that review will occur as a priority. Further, it is clear that deliberations on the annual plan have resulted in the plan that you have in the council papers for today's meeting. I note the papers include a rates freeze for the Taieri targeted rates schemes. Presumably then councillors would have to vote against the plan as presented today, a plan that has been previously well debated and workshopped for that freeze not to occur. I acknowledge, however, that there was some debate on the freeze, so I want to focus my presentation on that point. In my view, the rationale for the freeze is simple and compelling. Firstly, the ratepayers have been presenting on this issue for a number of years with no traction from council. That simply isn't our fault. It is in your hands. A point well made at the workshop by Councillor Somerville. Secondly, there have been substantive changes to settlement patterns on the Taieri in the intervening period that would indicate charging another year of rates increase to the targeted Taieri ratepayers in FY24 would be inequitable. A point again well made by Councillor Somerville at the workshop. Thirdly, your existing CEO, Mr. Boren, met with our group last year and undertook to address the issue. By his own admission, he has not. Again, not our fault. And as suggested by Mr. Boren at the workshop, a freeze might just add the motivation to get on with it. Fourthly, we heard from Mr. Gavin Palmer at the workshop that there would be no liability arising from the freeze, as the work program would continue with the work being funded from reserves. There was some discussion about the increase in overall targeted reserve deficits arising from the freeze, but as Mr. Boren succinctly explained to councillors, these are 10-year work programs with the ability to rate in later years to deal with future work programs and deficits. In other words, a freeze in FY24 would not prohibit subsequent rating. Fifthly, we heard that the notion of a rate freeze is not a new occurrence, the ORC having exercised this right in the past. We heard that the ORC is legally entitled to do so, and the freeze would not create any admission of liability for historic rating. There was a question raised by Mr. Nick Donnelly on why just the Taieri rate schemes. Won't other targeted ratepayers such as Clutha be upset? My answer to that is simple. To the best of my knowledge, Clutha haven't been here presenting every year on the inequity of the current scheme, nor do they face the size of rate increases that we are facing annually. Mr. Donnelly also argued that fairness and equity were a matter of perception. What one ratepayer believes to be fair, another one believes to be unfair. This simply is an erroneous argument to put. And I give an extreme example. Vladimir Putin supporters probably perceive the invasion of Ukraine to be fair and equitable. That is not the perception of most moral and law-abiding citizens of the West. My point is simply this: eventually common sense must prevail. On the face of it, if it appears inequitable for 20 ratepayers to be paying 50% of the targeted rates, some facing annual increases in the tens of thousands of dollars, then most would think that it is inequitable. What's more, this argument certainly wasn't applied when the current scheme rating was implemented in 2011. Finally, and probably most importantly, the most insightful and perhaps the most compelling reason for freezing the rates was highlighted by Chairperson Robertson. There is a mending of relationship required between council and this group of ratepayers. In the early part of my working career, I was Chief Executive of Tasman Agriculture. That was a company that was then the largest pastoral dairy farmer, had 73 farms here in the South Island, and 13 of those were located in Otago. Our relationship with the ORC and other local regulatory bodies of the time were collaborative, collegial, and consultative. A relationship of mutual respect and benefit in what were then rapidly changing times. That, alas, has not been my experience with ORC over the last few years. Now, you are going into a very important review of the rating system and the long-term plan, one that will need to address the sustainability of funding and dramatically changing times of challenge. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it just be great to get the stakeholders on board in a positive environment to add value to that review alongside council rather than butting heads against it? My very, very, very strong assertion is a rating freeze on the Taieri targeted schemes for FY24, alongside a working liaison group to be established, as most wisely put forward by councillors Wilson, McCall and Scott, will be an excellent step forward in mending that relationship so that we can work constructively together once more. You simply must support the review, you simply must support the freeze, and you must simply support the establishment of the liaison group. In closing, I would like to thank Councillors Wilson and Malcolm for their tirelessly arguing our cause, and indeed congratulate the balance of council for finally moving forward to address our concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We're a little bit over time, so a couple of quick questions. Thank you. Anyone got any questions of clarification? It's a very clear presentation. Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Thank you.
And thanks heaps for coming in. We always enjoy having public forum.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks.
You. Good luck.
Thank you. Pierre, welcome.
Kia ora koto koto. My name is Pierre Marasti. I am speaking on behalf of Extinction Rebellion. During our last speech, we told you that the latest IPCC report was a warning to brace for more extreme weather. Only a week later, an atmospheric river settled over New Zealand, causing again more destruction. It shouldn't come as a surprise. Since the last council meeting, the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration warned us that ocean temperatures had broken records and that we are now in uncharted territories. Warmer oceans means more moisture in the air, more powerful storms, and the strengthening of a nasty vicious cycle, as water vapor is also a powerful greenhouse gas. What we are witnessing are the effects of these record ocean temperatures, and not just here in New Zealand. Floods just killed 14 people in Italy. Floods killed 22 people in Somalia. Floods killed 400 people in Congo. These are just a few examples. The floods in Somalia also displaced 250,000 people, but the worst part of it is that they followed a multi-year climate-induced drought that killed about 43,000 Somalians last year alone, and half of them being children. All of this is due to our emissions. The oceans being at the warmest ever, combined with the announced start of an El Niño cycle this year, will probably make the end of 2023 just as bad as it has been so far. An El Niño weather pattern means that global temperatures will warm up to reach new records. This event hasn't even started yet, but already Asia is experiencing record temperatures. Europe is in a drought. Siberia is burning. Canada is burning. Spain is burning, and it isn't even summer yet. Let's make it clear that these events are affecting us, even if we may feel sheltered here in our region. More and more, climate change is becoming the main cause of the cost of living crisis. Last year, insurances in New Zealand paid a record $351 million on extreme weather damages. By early April this year, after only 3 months, they already paid $2.47 billion, seven times more in 3 months only. Eventually, we will all pay the bill through our insurance's premiums. Another factor affecting us is the increase in building prices. and in infrastructure maintenance costs due to the climate destruction. Not even mentioning the inflation in food prices due to lost harvest and our badly affected fish stocks. Climate change has finally become part of the conversation. Apparently, this year's election will be a climate change election, but talking about it doesn't change anything, only acting matters. To act, it is important to understand that all this destruction is self-inflicted. Every time you burn petrol, you make the situation worse. Every time you burn gas, you make the situation worse. Every time you take a plane, you make the situation worse. As councillors, you are in the unenviable position of being responsible not only for your own emissions, but also for the emissions of the entire region. There are many changes you need to push for as councillors. But here is an easy one. You will be consulted on the development of the planned Taras Airport. Air travel to New Zealand, if we account for the whole flight, creates more than 10% of the country's emissions. Flying for tourism is a completely useless industry, unlike food production, for example. To destroy prime agricultural land for a useless international airport at a time where the climate collapse is accelerating in plain sight is complete madness. You need to do all you can to stop the development of this new airport. We need less airports, not more. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions today? Yes, not. Thank you once again, Pierre. Appreciate your appearance.
Thank you.
We can confirm the agenda today, and we have declaration of interests just noted as usual there. The confirmation of minutes, we're actually going to defer the confirmation of the minutes of the 26th of April to the next council meeting. There was a error in those, so we need to correct that, and we will just consider a double dose of minutes at the next meeting. Open actions. Yeah, the error was around a resolution, so it's not a small one. Yeah. So anyway, on to the actions. Anything arising there? Most, I think pretty well all the ones that I looked at there are ones that are not due yet, so they're still underway. If anyone has any questions, that's okay. Otherwise, we can move on. There was the undertaking steps to become a shareholder in Regional Software Holdings, which Nick updated us on at the last meeting anyway. We probably could change the date of that one as a result, perhaps, rather than each coming. Maybe there's a, we have undertaken steps, so we could cross it off, perhaps, or we could. Is there an end? No.
It'll be sorted and signed by the next meeting. So
Okay. Oh, thank you.
update it to mark it as complete for the next one.
That's fine then. Thank you. The rest are not due yet, so we'll move on from actions then. And on to 8.1, a very significant occasion for the council each year, annual plan adoption. And yeah, as we know, it's an important moment because it enables the staff then to calculate and present the rating resolution as well. So yeah, we will consider the items that have been added as well today as a result of the workshop. And if you'd like to take us through any matters, you're welcome to at this point, Mike and Nick.
I'll throw to Mike, but just before we start, I'll just point out a couple of things. Obviously, in the agenda is the annual plan draft document. It referenced the rating funding impact statement that got distributed as a supplementary item on Monday. And also, I just emailed everybody the rates examples that worked with that as you mentioned, Chair, the rates resolution follows this. Usually we do the two in the one meeting in June, but because we're doing this one now, the rates resolution will still come in June, and we usually have those sample rates attached to that, but we've calculated that, and so only got that to you slightly before this meeting. And the only other thing to note is in the resolution there, it got pointed out, thanks to Councillor Noon, that resolution 5, it should say that the surplus is 984,000, not 498. So just a typo there. Apologies for that. But I'll throw to Mike just to summarise what's in the paper.
And that was my typo too, by the way, not the
Easy to
accountants.
do, and
So
good
not-
one for
not
picking it up,
accountant in the room.
Councillor Noon. An
Put his hand
important
up.
one.
This was it, though, just in the wrong order.
Yeah, the eyes were sort of getting a bit cross-eyed by that time.
Yeah,
Look, the recommendations, I'll just quickly just flag that
Yeah,
the
that'd be
recommendations are set out as a process that you can choose to step through if you wish. I'm suggesting that this is perhaps how you could do it. And it's picking up on Nick's points. The first one there being you've got your community feedback, and just reminding you that was an informal process and not a formal one under the LGA. So we took your direction at your May 11 workshop on that feedback. Just for your information, all that community feedback is on our website. So it's the same in terms of disclosure and transparency for the community. The second point there, as Nick said, we've got an annual plan document, and we've updated it based on your May 11 feedback and discussion. Paragraph 11 talks about those changes that have been picked up and are now in the draft plan for adoption. And then you're getting into your recommendation for your approving your schedule of fees and charges, which are again a part of the annual plan document that you're adopting. And then the recommendation 5 that's been corrected, as Nick's pointed out, in adopting the plan itself, including that missing piece of information. That's the supplementary bit of information that's now in front of you. And then finally, if you get to choose to adopt the plan today, it's the delegations of minor editorial corrections to the CE, and that's a pretty standard recommendation that we have in the adoption report. And basically that looks like, if you choose to adopt the plan today, we have probably a couple of weeks before we've got to submit the plan to Wellington to make it look pretty, basically, and get a full editorial proofing of the documents. There's no typos, and it's a polished document, and that's pretty much it. So back to you, Madam Chair.
thank you very much. Okay, thanks. Are there any questions then? Councillor Wilson.
Just for completeness of the report, I'm just wondering whether the recommended motion, second part, should actually include the changes. Those changes, while they're written up in paragraph 11, haven't come through a council resolution to date, and because it's a workshop, and I'm just wondering whether that paragraph should actually be pulled out and included in there to articulate it. It also makes the readability for people submitting much better. Would that?
Yeah, you could change notes to approves. I couldn't see a problem.
Sorry,
with
no,
that.
it's notes that, but incorporate into that paragraph, the resolution, the actual things that have changed in paragraph 11. It just makes it a lot easier for people to find that.
Just double checking on the paragraph 11 that A is totally as we intended, which is rates freeze for landowners located in the targeted rating areas, Tyree drainage scheme C.
No, it's not C. C's not. C's a typo here.
It is a typo, yes.
Sorry. It's
And is it
It's
just
a-
drainage?
no, it's not
No,
drainage.
flood.
It's flood and drainage.
Yeah, it is flood and drainage.
Yeah. And
So that's important.
yeah,
It needs to be recorded in the minutes and as a correction.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the direction of the work, yeah.
but that's partly why I take those out, add the word flood and protection, takes the C dot out.
Have we got what we're talking about there?
So
It's
that would
paragraph
be the only
11
point that
A.
needs to go into under resolution 2, because that's the only change that actually that got made out of the deliberations from 2 weeks ago, because the other deliberations didn't actually change anything in the annual plan.
No, but it's a response to 1, which is feedback.
Sorry, I'm not sure what you're talking about there.
Oh, so the first thing is we note the community feedback on the Otago Regional Council draft annual plan. Notes the changes that have been made, and I appreciate they're not necessary changes, but they're responses too. And that's why I thought it was note the changes that came out of the responses to those.
I see, I don't acknowledge that.
Yeah, the resolution or recommendation 2 was referring to the Tyree rates freeze, because that was the change that got made to the annual, to the annual plan. So all that had there under 1 had notes the community feedback. Again, it hasn't got any reference there to what council was doing with that other than that paragraph 11. So whether you wanted, are you saying you would like the resolution there to actually note what
Where it came from, I suppose.
or no,
That's
what
what I'm
council was
picking up.
saying to each of those groups?
Well, I thought it responded more fully than I thought A, B, and C were all different responses to that consultation. Have I got that wrong?
So what happens process-wise, and this might help, is that all of those submitters, for want of a bit of a word, people that go feedback, will be getting a personalised letter talking about May 11 and what came out of that, and indeed adoption, really, what happens at this final meeting here today, along with the May 11 discussion. So that's what's happening in a relationship sense with all those that submitted. So that you're talking about
Oh no, I just thought,
formalising
I was,
when we're not actually running a formal. We have
no. It's just, if I'm reading these documents, we put this plan out. This is how we responded. So 1 says we got some feedback, informal or whatever. 2 says what we did with it. I thought B and C were still responses to that consultation.
Yes, they were.
They are, yes, correct. And there are things that we are
They
doing.
don't adjust the financials, so.
Yeah.
So that was Nick's point, that only the A does. So that's what you were thinking of when you wrote the resolution 2. That's what I heard from you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, when Mike wrote it, but
Oh,
Yeah, it
well,
doesn't change.
Sorry. you-
so
yeah.
the Tyree rates freeze changed the annual plan
Yeah.
document. The other 2
Yeah.
are the actions that will happen through the annual plan, but they didn't actually result in a change to the document itself.
Got that?
So what
Yes,
Kate's saying is,
Councillor
where do
Hall.
those other 2 actions show as a resolution from the government's group?
They should be in there.
So they're 2 actions that have come out of the feedback. So
There could be an extra resolution
Would be to direct staff to
in,
implement 11 point B point C.
yeah, so we could make a new 2 perhaps and then bump the others down or something. Yeah. So that's right. Noting the other 2 changes. What is it, Lloyd, that you just said occurring as a result of consultation or feedback and workshopping?
yeah, I don't like doing resolutions on the floor.
Why can't we just say notes the council staff have included B and C?
Okay.
Yeah, just do
Yeah.
B and C from the
Yeah.
notes. Yeah.
And just coming back to that A and making sure sorry, Kylie, you're still recording that one, so I won't do another one. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, you've got it here.
Yeah.
It'll need to be 11, B and C.
We'll put that as number 3, and then we'll copy the words, follow up with the upper inclusive blah, blah,
Yeah.
reallocation, reprioritization. So we'll include the words there, B and C.
Yeah.
And then where did you want to
11B and
change
C.
that setting about A? Is that going to be?
No, it's just in the minutes, not the minutes, the actual report
Yes, I'm
wording.
looking at, so
Yeah,
there's
we've
a,
got
so
that
what
one.
should it say?
So notes of changes, 11A, but you add the word flood and drainage.
And isn't it lower Tyree, just to make sure as well, because we've actually got.
No, it should just say Tyree
Tyree,
flood and
okay.
drainage because it's
That's
east and west
official
Tyree
name.
drainage and it's lower Tyree flood because the flood encompasses both east and west. So it's just more correct to say Tyree flood and drainage covers
Thank
everything.
you.
Yep.
Tyree flood and drainage schemes, yep.
And where is that included in this?
Third and two, the second two.
So included in the second two, okay,
Notes the changes,
that have been made to be made.
notes the
The
changes to
change.
the Tari flood and
Wording
drainage.
changes.
Tyree flood and drainage scheme. That have been made to be fine. Okay, and then we'll put the next one, included B and C as number 3. Yeah. Okay.
Yep,
Just to
councillor Somerville.
Clarify or possibly complicate matters, I'm referring to 11B there, that's dealt with in paper 8.2, I understand, where the advice from council was, from staff was that no 11B course of action was not viable. So that will be coming in the next paper to follow up on that. Thanks. That's right? Yep.
Actually, that's a good point though. Sorry
we've-
about
we've
those
done
things are
something.
never straightforward, are they? But
Yes, sorry. Oh, you take
Sorry,
the
Mike.
two and the noting,
the B out.
note that count, that staff have included 11B and 11C.
What duration of that?
Because technically that's right, we've got another paper that does a different method of treatment for it. It doesn't matter, probably not too much. No,
Well, my understanding is it doesn't have a funding impact on this plan, so
no.
yeah.
Will come out of a different pool of money.
it's coming
I don't
out
know
of
if that's
existing.
important, it's a smallish amount in the bigger picture, yep. It's not significant, that's what I mean, yep. Okay, so it's probably okay how it is, thanks for raising that. Councillor Somerville, Councillor Scott.
Yeah, cool. It's good that 11B and 11C are in there, so that's clear, because there was, there has been a bit of angst around, for example, the staff resource that's been required to work with the Dunedin Tracks Network, and I'm sure Kate is as well. It's very happy that that's been addressed in this plan. My question is it clear that the freeze that's proposed for the Tyree flood and drainage is only for this next particular year? So, for example, I think we're proposing to go through a review process. The review process will come back with some recommendations, but that mightn't be the end of it. It could be angst could continue for quite a period of time. So the commitment we're giving here today is simply a rate freeze for the next annual plan year, full stop, yeah?
Mhm.
So there's no expectation that it will flick over for the following year, regardless of the review. There will be a conclusion reached, and I'm assuming that the review process will fit into that annual plan year, plus time for community feedback and consultation, yeah?
Yeah, as we discussed in the workshop yesterday, that's all part of of the LTP and of that funding, review program that we've got going on.
Yeah.
So this is a freeze just for this year. And then we'll be looking at everything as part of the LTP.
Yeah.
So, you council might decide nothing changes and that increase has to come back on, or the whole rating method's all being changed, and it's a completely different world that you're looking at. So it's really up to you.
Cool, thank you.
Else with questions? Councillor McCall.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering also, when we're talking around this area, because we had discussed around promoting the setting up of a working group on the Taieri, or setting up a community type group to get the communication lines as part of rates freeze. So I'm not too sure. I'm just really asking what people's feelings are on that, and does it need to be put in as an official motion, or is it put in via work plans?
Yep. Pam, did you want to comment on that at all?
No, you've got a choice.
Yeah. Councillor Wilson, we'll come back to that one.
Well, on that point, I'm just going to say I absolutely agree with you that we have to do it, and I've tried a number of times to do it. But I think, given that we're in a transition to a new CEO, I'd like to leave that to the next meeting. Definitely heard what Ray had to say, but that this is the financial one that needs to be done today. That one can be part of that review, and I think it'd be nice to let start that one off.
You know,
Yeah, it'd be
that's
quite
fair.
nice to bring a paper to discuss on,
Yeah.
and even to have talked to the community about the best way of engaging perhaps as well. We have heard about the need to build relationships and take everyone's points of view into account. So I think taking a bit of time is a really good suggestion, Councillor Wilson. Yep. Are you happy with that,
Yeah, no, I
Councillor
agree with
McCall?
that.
Councillor Mepham?
I guess it's a question, but this annual plan is falling out of the 10-year long-term plan. I take it it's year 3 of that plan. I guess the question I'm asking is that how closely is this annual plan aligning with what was agreed in the long-term plan for the period 21-31? Are there any significant differences, or is it tracking along as you would expect?
Over the LTP cycle, we've stuck to our direction, and there's been no significant change through that cycle, including this plan. All eyes on the new LTP.
Thank you. Looks like we have exhausted the question part then, so we do have the resolutions sort of drafted up there, but we can have some debate. Yep.
I have to move with those amendments.
Oh, thank you. Welcome, Councillor Laws. We are at the part of the meeting where we are about to enter debate, and we have 8 resolutions so far, with the suggestion of taking them one by one. So, yeah, Kate's happy to move them all though, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're moving them all. Yep. And somebody wants to second them all then for simplicity, Councillor Noon. Right. Kate, did you want to speak?
I just want to thank the staff who've done, I think have listened really well on our concerns, and it's been a really interesting process this time. And also the community, who I think have supported us on rather at times lofty increases in rates. But I just want to caution that we have to start delivering things that they can see on the ground that they're passionate about. And because some of you weren't here last year when we signed off on last time we signed off on a substantial rates rise, they said the hard part's done. And I said, no, the hard part has just started. We have to show the community things are getting better, or that we're making a difference. And I think that is still a work in progress.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak? Councillor Noon, then Scott.
Thanks, Madam Chair. This is the 3rd year, as Councillor Metham has just alluded to, 3rd year of a 10-year plan that we set 3 years ago, or thereabouts, which was a pretty ambitious and lofty jump in terms of a commitment from this organisation, a rate increase, a significant focus on ensuring that the organisation was fit for purpose, had adequate capability and capacity. So we were turning a corner, climbing a mountain, whatever you like to call it, It's not over yet, but it's another significant step to ensure that the organisation is able to deliver not only for governance and staff here, but deliver for the region and what the community demands of the organisation now and into the future, and also delivers on the expectation from central government as well.
Thank you, Councillor Noon. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, Cole, thank you. Yeah, ditto to what Councillors Kate and Andrew have just said. The council wanted to continue some momentum. We've got significant work ahead of us. We've got a transition of CEs, we've got a long-term plan, we've got an RPS, we've got a land and water regional plan, and we're actually hoping that all these will make a positive difference. I think in terms of this annual plan, we've had a reasonable process. We've had something like 4 workshops. We've had a consultation of sorts, which I've got mixed views about, but nevertheless, we've had, you'll see in there, as we've discussed, some feedback from different entities. We've landed up with a rates rise, which is not insignificant. I'm sure from a community perspective, they will be hurting when they see the 18, but it's been rationalised on the basis that it was previously signalled in their LTP at 12% plus inflation. So I think we've looked upon that as a reasonable outcome. We'll focus on, continuing the momentum. But as Councillor Kate says, it's actually time to deliver on all the work that's gone in beforehand, the significant rate rises. We're looking at a new building. We're doing a lot of different things. The community will be expecting some outcomes, some deliverables in terms of their environmental improvements, their waterways, this type of thing. So we need to take that on board.
Thank you. Councillor Kelleher, then Laws.
Thank you. This is another sizable increase. We had signalled it, and it's sizable again above that, with the reasoning being inflation. And I certainly hope that we are over the hump of sizable increases, and what we will see is a far more business as usual in the upcoming years. I will not be supporting the increases to the schedule of fees and charges. I think that is too high. I've signalled that in the workshops. I'll reluctantly support the rest. I'm very relieved to see the rates freeze be there. I think that hopefully is the catalyst and creates some momentum to get on with what those people have been asking for a very long period of time, and they deserve to have. There have been changes there that I think there is an imbalance, and it'll be good to see where the reviews come to. I'm very relieved to see that the Upper Clutha Wilding Pine contribution is there. Desperately hoping that the other parties who may contribute to that will also do that, because that is my understanding is an all complete resolving of the Wilding Pine issue in the Upper Clutha for that area. So otherwise, let's get on with it. Thank you.
Go, Councillor Laws.
Well, colleagues will know how I felt about this when it was first raised, so you won't be surprised that I'm not convinced that we've examined ourselves or the value of our current spending, nor engaged in a consultation process that genuinely involve those who will be most affected by the decision that is going to be made today. 12% long-term plan increase is now increased to 18%. That's a 50% increase from the long-term plan, and I don't think anybody could vaguely find that acceptable. Inflation cannot be used as a valid excuse. It's not running at 50%. And so I certainly don't buy that argument. In addition, we haven't used debt as an instrument, especially in terms of looking at wilding pines and pest management. I am very concerned that some of the gains that we've made in wilding pines are going to be lost, and that we'll be going backwards over the next 12 months. We might have used debt instead of rates, as a way of attacking that particular issue, but a number of others as well. I don't think our community will find 18% acceptable. And for that reason, and because I've talked to you about this before, I will not be voting for the annual plan.
Thank you, Councillor Laws. Just a small point of clarification. I think, Councillor Byron.
Look, I appreciate everybody's comments around the table, and I absolutely appreciate yours too, Michael. For my sins, not only have I got a degree in economics, I've got a degree in mathematics. You can't suggest that a 12% rates increase moving to an 18% rates increase is a 50% increase. It isn't. It's a 6% increase. And that's 6% over our budgeted expenditure. So that is equivalent to the increase in inflation over and above the 2% that we'd planned in the previous long-term plan. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Dr.
Well, wait on. I want to clarify that too. I've done my maths as well. When you've gone from 12 to 18%, that's a 50% increase in the rate in which you were going to levy this year over the 12% that you were going to offer. Sorry, I actually did. I did maths too.
Yeah, so it's a 50% increase in the increase, but not in the overall amount rated. So I think we're saying the same thing, so that's all good. We understand both points. Thank you. Anyone else wanting to enter the debate? Councillor Mepham.
Just on that one, sorry, I talked out of terms, but inflation has gone also from 3% to 6%, which would be 100% increase as well. So I do agree with you in that sense. I'll be supporting these recommendations. We have, in fact, initiated an efficiency review of this organisation as well to support the rates increase. And the rates review is a very important step for us to get some equity out of our rating system. So we look forward to doing that with other regional councils around New Zealand as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Councillor McCollum.
Yes, thank you. Madam Chair, I just wanted to go back to 2021 when the current long-term plan was approved. And I think at that stage, the council at the time had to be quite visionary in how they approached it. And they had a pretty tough decision to make. They had a council that was probably wasn't really firing at all. And they had the decision where they just keep it as a minimalistic council, where they wanted a council that's going to actually make change and actually work for the environment and work for the people. And they made the decision to build capability and capacity within the organisation so that we now have got a council that's become very relevant. We've gone through a significant building phase. This is year 3 of the building phase, which has been singled right from the beginning. So I take my hat off to that council for making that decision. Our council now is to build on that vision. So we have to move from building capability to actually providing outcomes. And so that's the challenge our council has going forward. But we couldn't have done that if we weren't in this position, if we didn't go through this growth phase. So we have to support it. Like, we have to support it so that we get to that, what I would call the new business as normal. And we have to, as Councillor Wilson said, we have to be able to show the things that are happening and what we are influencing on the ground as well. So I'm very much in favour, and going forward, as Councillor Meffin says, there's efficiency reviews and stuff going through now. We're coming out of the building phase, and now we're coming into the, hang on a minute, we've got to make sure that we're doing this right for the long term. And we still don't exactly know where our organisation is going to sit long term, but we're going to find that. We're going to find that over the next 6 or 8 months with our strategic planning for the new long-term plan. So I'll be voting for the resolutions and look forward to being part of the equation as we actually show that we are a relevant council going forward. Also will support I also support the council's ability to actually sit back in the chairs and say, well, hang on a minute, we need to actually stop and relook at what's happening on the Taieri and start to build rebuild our relationships down there, and it doesn't hurt to take a pause and actually not go back to the drawing board, but get back to our communities, because our communities where it's all going to happen and where we're going to get our benefits from. So I'm looking forward to progressing forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCall. Very well said. At this point, Councillor Caladur, have your hand up before? Just double checking because I often miss around here. Sorry. Okay, I just no, everyone's happy. Great. I just wanted to particularly thank Pim, Nick, Mike, everyone that's put this together, and our team actually of governors as well. It's been impressive the way that we have worked together through this, the transparency and workshopping and addressing issues. And whilst it was a feedback rather than a full consultation this year, to really do our best to hear from people too in public forum and to ensure that people were able to see us thinking, working together effectively. And today's our chance to now vote on where we've got to with that. So democracy in action and community making a difference. So whilst it is year 3, and yes, we've deliberately come through a growth phase, and this is about cementing and delivering on those agreed community outcomes. It's a really important time for our council, and we'll be entering into that. Well, we are already in an LTP building phase as well. But yeah, I just really want to thank everyone that's been involved. I think it's been a really, really good process, a lot of work. So thank you. Okay, so we got the recommendations, and as we said, we're going to go through them one by one. Kylie, would you mind putting those up?
Can I just do my reply? Sorry.
Oh, sorry, you've got, yes, Kate, sorry.
I just want to, and it's because something that I don't normally want to do rights of reply, but
yep.
I think it's really important to, when people say very easily, or we should do OPEX under debt funding, that is just asking the future to pay for something we've got a problem with now. And what I really hope that we have a discussion, because we are going into long-term planning phase, and it's having a principle that if it's operational expenditure, we actually pay for it up front. Capital I can understand deferring some of that, but we actually have to be much more rigorous. We've got huge problems that we're giving to our young, our next generation, or those very closely behind us, in the way of need for change, for climate change, and we can't just keep on deferring stuff. And so any conversation that ever defers something like operational expenses to debt, please can we be mindful of our job to the future generations? It just isn't acceptable. And I totally admit it. To thank, for the last year, we've had the pleasure of having an economist and a mathematician around the table, as well as the wonderful staff from finance. And I think that the true benefit of his contribution will probably be found in the next year, when we may have more thinking about how jobs and FTEs and everything, and the budgets and some savings that may come out. He's come on running and dealt with some really big issues we had. The value that he may have added to our financial, us inquiring to our finances better, I think will be, hopefully we'll get some better resolution later, which may give us some savings. So I think it was wrong for me not to acknowledge him and his contribution at that level. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, would you mind sharing the screen for the resolutions? Just with that change there.
Still have Michael.
Yes.
We'll still have Michael.
For his mathematical expertise.
Rightio, sorry. We're back on to it.
You do.
Very good start.
Oh, lovely. Number 1, notes the community feedback on the ORC draft annual plan 23-24. All in favour? Aye. Against?
No.
Carried.
Can I have my vote recorded, please?
Sure. Number 2 is additional there. Notes the council staff have included 11B and 11C. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? carried. Notes the changes to the Tyree flood and drainage scheme that have been made to the approved draft annual plan financial estimates. Sorry to read all this out, that are now included in the annual plan 23-24 presented then for adoption. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. 4, notes the supplementary paper to this meeting titled Annual Plan Additional Content, provides the funding impact statement calculation of rates for the 23-24 year to be included in the annual plan 23-24. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. 5, approves the ORC schedule of fees and charges applicable from 1st of July 23. All in favour? Aye. Against?
No.
And recorded, please.
And same, please.
Carried. Thank you. We'll record those. Resolves that it is financially prudent to have an annual operating surplus of 984,000 for the 23-24 annual plan year. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Adopts the ORC, sorry, Elliot, can you move over a little? Annual plan 23-24 is circulated with this report. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
No. No.
Thank you. Would you like that recorded, Councillor Laws?
Thank you, Chair Gretchen.
Oh, yep. Brilliant. Number 8, approves the delegation of minor editorial corrections formerly included. Yeah, you know what that says. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Okay. That brings us to the completion of the annual plan report today. And yeah, as we said, we'll look forward to the financial part coming to the next council. All right, 8.2, Upper Clutha Wilding Group. And I think that is Libby. Is Libby here?
Online.
Oh, Libby's online. Hi, Libby.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. So yeah, report seeking council approval to provide funding in the 23-24 financial year to that group. Is there anything particularly that needs pointed out here? Libby, we've read it.
Just it's in response to the annual plan request, which you'll be aware of from the Upper Clutha Wilding Tree Group, and the paper gives 2 options. One is to approve the allocation of funding, and one is to not approve. So I'm ready for questions whenever, if anyone's got any.
Yep. Councillor Noon has one.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Libby, in paragraph 10 of your report, it refers to the environmental implementation team helping to establish this group, and also it talks about providing support, funding a facilitator, administration of the group, and through technical advice. Are you able to estimate, I'll tell you why I'm asking the question in a moment, estimate the approximate funding, whether it's in kind or whatever way that we've supported this group, be able to put a figure on that? And why I'm asking the question is that you raise the issue about precedent, and in my view, I think we're past that point. So that's why I'm asking the question.
Okay, I don't have an exact figure, but I can come back with one if needed. We've provided a significant amount of in-kind support through our team, specifically through Gavin Udy's time as the National Program Coordinator for Wild and Conifers. So he's been our key support mechanism for that group from the environmental implementation team. And we have funded, I can't remember the exact amount that we've funded the facilitator for, but they've attended and helped to set up this group, as well as we've been really lucky to have Karen Little, which is Gavin Palmer's EA. She's been coordinating the administration of that group until now. So there has been a significant amount of investment into setting this group up and helping them establish, but I don't have the exact amount, but I can get that if that's helpful.
Don't worry about the amount, getting the amount to us, that's okay. And the other question I had was, is it fair to assume that there's been an environmental lens put across this group in terms of the need for the work, the priority for the Otago Regional Council to support this particular group? So are you able just to elaborate a little bit on that process, please?
Yep. So we've been through an exercise where we've looked. So the Wanaka Management Unit is not an area that's funded by the national program, but that doesn't mean that it's not a priority for Otago. And we have put a lens across that and we agree that it is an area that we should be prioritising as an organisation if we have that opportunity. But it's not always easy to pop that into the national program because they have different ways of prioritising and information that they are using to do so. Was your question, Councillor Noon, was that more around all of the other environmental lenses as well, or just in regards to wild and conifers?
Just in regards to wild and conifers, in particular, adding this one in to achieve, greater control in an area where you saw it was a priority, basically.
Yep. So I think I've answered that part, and we have done that.
Cool. Thank you. Madam Chair, I'm happy to move the recommendation with option 1.
Are they pressing questions before, or you
I
want
did have one
Okay,
question.
cool. Yep, you're moving, and we'll come back to questions. Is there a seconder? Councillor Forbes, you can go ahead with your question.
Thanks. Look, I'm just looking at paragraph 24 of that paper, where if about the financial consideration. So if this was approved, it says it would result in 30,000 less to spend on community education and site-led program delivery. Could you give a clearer idea of the significance of that work that wouldn't be done?
Yes, I can. So it is likely that it would probably come from the rabbit incentive funding for the next financial year. So it wasn't eligible in this round, but we can look to take it off that for the coming financial year.
Rather than rabbits, perhaps.
Pardon, what was that?
Comes from rabbits.
Yeah, so we can allocate what we have for our incentive funding each year. So we could just take $30,000 off the rabbit funding and put it towards this. So that's where it's likely to come from.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yep. Councillor Laws. Yep. Then Scott.
So let me get this right. We're removing funding from one pest control, rabbits, to fund this. Didn't we just pass in the annual plan, or at least others did, that we have an operating surplus of 498,000 to take forward, or some sort of buffer into the next financial year?
Yes.
148, not 498.
Yeah.
148, was it?
948.
984. Okay. So I'm obviously going to ask the obvious question. Why do we need to cut back anything? Why don't you just take $30,000 out of there?
Yeah, the 984 is overall, and it includes the 4.5 million gain from the sale of Birch Kitchener. So if you remove that out, which it shows in our surplus deficit calculation, but if you remove that out, our operating expenditure is still above our operating revenues. So we always factored in that was coming, but you also remember the Birch Kitchener Street sale was factored in to be going through our building reserves and being utilised for Whare Runaka. So in effect, you'll if you dip into it for operational expenditure, you'll be spending money twice.
I'm sorry, how will you be spending money twice?
Because
this is a one-off $30,000.
Because the surplus that's there has been created by that one-off gain. If you back that out, then in fact there's a deficit.
I'm sorry, I'm struggling to see the problem. It's $30,000. It's a minor aspect of money. Surely we don't have to take $30,000 off rabbit control, which is the #1 pest in Otago, if we're actually going to aid and assist these people fight another invasive pest species, which is wilding pines. It seems absurd.
Yes, Dr. Warren.
Look,
how that would work.
my answer is, Libby, I understand you've got a budget and you've got to manage it. And this is where you're suggesting it could come from. But my view is we would look more closely and decide over time whether this is really money that we don't need to spend on rabbits. I've got a bit of sympathy for Michael's position. I think we can fund the 30,000. I understand Nick's place as well. We're not trying to increase the operational deficit, but this is so minor in the context of the entire budget that I'm comfortable that we'll find it.
Councillor
I guess
Meebum.
just a point for clarification, Libby, the $3.9 million that is set aside in the budget, has that been allocated, all of it, or is there some sort of that's sort of unallocated at this stage?
Yeah, it has been allocated, but we can adjust it around as needed. To so as Pim has just mentioned, we could look to pull it from somewhere else.
Yeah, thanks.
But that was just the suggestion in the paper.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah. I was just confirming with Dr. Byron too, what the recommendations which have already been moved, it doesn't say where it's coming from either. So there's that flexibility as well, which we haven't defined down deliberately. Councillor Moon, did I see your hand up? No, Councillor Scott.
Cool. Is this 30,000 subject to the QLDC also providing 30,000? And when do we find out whether they will actually provide? Is there an issue there at all, Libby?
Yes. So we would look to have QLDC provide the other 50% of the funding as well, and that would come in as part of our discussions when we create a funding agreement. Otherwise, if QLDC were not to fund it, we could look to fund $30,000 to the Upper Clutha group, but it wouldn't obviously. They wouldn't be able to deliver the same amount of work that they were expecting to with $60,000.
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you. Any other questions then? Doesn't look like it. Rightio. We got the mover and the seconder. Any debate then?
Just one matter I'd like to raise. Now that we've discussed that 30,000 and paragraph 24, I'm quite keen on making sure that what Pim has just said, and I think he's made good sense, is reflected in the motion, because this paper accompanies the motion, and paragraph 24 clearly says what the outcome will be. My argument would be that we want to clearly set aside the last sentence of paragraph 24. Otherwise, when people want to reflect on the motions that have passed and the context, they will see that item 24 clearly indicates where that money is going to come from. It's going to come from rabbit control.
So from what I can pick up, the 24 isn't correct. This would result in there being 30,000 less to spend on community education and site-led program delivery, even if it did come from rabbit, that isn't that. So that bit could be taken out.
You said from yet to be ascertained savings.
Yeah,
from savings.
Yet to be determined savings.
I don't think you need to put anything in, you just take the last sentence out. It just says it comes from the biosecurity budget.
That's exactly right.
So thank you, that's good, and that's what we were talking about before. Yeah, no need to be specific.
So take to support. Oh no.
So yeah, that is quite specific, that we're going to do less community education and site-led programs, and nowhere have I heard today that is what we're going to do. So yeah, okay, we'll remove that sentence. Have you got that okay?
So
Decides to approve option 1 to allocate 30,000 to the Upper Clutha Wilding Tree Group to support control work as detailed in figure 2 for the 2023 annual plan to be funded from yet to be ascertained savings.
So you don't want that put in now?
No, we don't need to
So
have
just
that,
the way
but
it
we were
was
just
originally.
noting that paragraph 24's final sentence isn't correct.
Can't change the report.
No, you could possibly do, resolution to
Just note,
note that.
just note that we're not sure yet where the savings will come from.
Okay, so maybe you are correct. Sorry, sorry, Liz, that is a good. As long as the mover and the seconder are happy with that. Can we show so that councillor Lords can see what it says too?
Yet to be ascertained. Yeah, so. And you can just share this page actually. if you want.
True, cool, let's do that.
Do we, but me see, but that doesn't matter. We can see what that says. Yep. Okay, mover and seconder are happy. And see what that says. Everyone's okay. Yep, I'll put it then. All in favour. Oh, sorry, councillor. No.
Clearly,
Of course
this
you
is
can.
a worthy project. And as someone has said, Pim or others have said, that the budget for biosecurity or environmental implementation is 3.9 million. So this is less than 1% of the overall budget. We've got 48 plant pests and animal pests in the pest plan. So staff will decide where the most appropriate place the money is spent. And clearly this particular project has had a level of scrutiny already. And staff have obviously recognised that it's a priority in terms of our overall pest control.
Councillor Forbes.
It's joining an existing bunch of groups that are under existing oversight from what we do. And we are confident that they will be able to do what they say they're going to do because of that oversight that's happening and because they are enveloped by very experienced groups in this area. I think that's important to it too.
Hey, we will put it then. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Libby.
Thank you.
Yes, the 8.4 extension on proposed regional policy statement. Welcome, Fleur and Anita. I think everyone's well aware of this issue and the splitting of the freshwater and non-freshwater components of the proposed regional policy statement. And I guess you will highlight to us anything else that's important, but a really important thing is paragraph 18, whereby the Chief Freshwater Commissioner encouraged the council to apply for an extension. It's not unexpected at all, this paper. So thanks for bringing it. If there's anything else that you needed to touch on.
So through the chair, I mean, I would just say that this really is to allow the two parts of the RPS to be brought back together. So it just provides the time for the freshwater hearings to occur, which we are optimistic will be August and September, for the panel to make decisions and recommendations, and that you as a council consider both lots of recommendations together as one document, because we need to weave it back together. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Madam Chair. As you say, paragraph 18, points out what makes a lot of sense. My only question is, we're extending the timeframe for the RPS. We've previously done that with the Land and Water Regional Plan. In terms of resource workloads, like there's no danger we're just kicking the can down the road in terms of
like we've got a resource now. So what's the actual impact, in terms of workloads and delivery? What's the impact of this?
So through the chair, this won't have an impact in terms of staff. So we've got some staff that are working on the RPS and consultants, and different staff, not different consultants, working on the land and water plan. So it doesn't impact on the work programs at all. This really is just to allow those two processes to line up. So the panel are hopeful that you might see this before Christmas, but if it's not before Christmas, then you don't meet in January, and therefore it'll be February, and that's why it says March rather than something else. But there is no impact in terms of on the land and water plan timeframe.
No, I wasn't actually saying that. It was, previously you've staffed up your resource to deliver certain things in the foreseeable future. You'd split the RPS in two, so you'd be doing some of it a bit earlier than later. Now we're doing both parts together integrated, which makes a lot of sense, together later, along with the land and water plan, which is later. And what's everybody going to be doing in the interim?
So we're not actually doing the work later,
Okay.
but also you might just recall that most of our RPS team, internal team resigned or moved. So actually there's none of them, one left. So you'll recall Lisa's now in Taranaki, James is in the strategy.
Okay,
team.
that's a good answer.
Yes, they're not here anymore.
Okay, cool, that helps. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
First of all, apologies. I'm taking umbrage that anyone would ever suggest you guys were kicking the can down the corridor or anywhere else. And I appreciate that for the road, but I'm sorry, I seriously think that is undervaluing the terribly large workload that these guys are trying to deliver. And so I apologize for, I'm taking umbrage, and I imagine that you could read well and truly. My question is along the same line though. So it's a time frame, because what I'm really worried about is how you can deliver transparently something that is RPS is your high level document. You've got land and water plan underneath that. You're saying at best maybe February we could get this through to council, and then you have to deliver within 4 months the lower order document, but without knowing the changes that are in the higher order document. The likeness to this is, I think it puts a lot of load of you on 4 months. And I suppose what I want to make sure is that you're messaging that even at 31st of March, that gives you a really awful time frame.
Yeah, so through the chair, this paper did say December originally. I was uncomfortable with December because I've not seen a hearings panel deliver that quickly.
No.
So it says March at my behest, again, because of January. They are really aware of the timeframes and are trying to deliver it in 2023. So we're optimistic we'll see it then, but we had always planned that would need to be a reassessment against where the RPS landed, but it is tight.
Okay, well, on that count, can you just not worry about us having a January holiday seriously this year, because we got one last year and the year before, you guys haven't, and I'm really aware of that. And I would really like to think that you'd be calling a meeting. I'm just saying this is a question, long-winded as it is, that if you'd be calling a meeting for us at Suni's convenience to work in with your staff plan, because I am really concerned. But when you write this letter, will you be pointing out to the minister that really confined potential period that you've got as a heads up?
If you would like us to just note the tight timing with the land and water plan, we're happy to add that in. It will be a letter from Gretchen, but we will words on a paper for her to start with.
I just think we just lay it on the ground that that's that time frame. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Yep. Anyone else then with questions? No? Rightio. So then we have recommendations. Sorry, back to that page. Noting the report and instructing me to write to the Minister for the Environment seeking the extension, and that was all for the recommendations.
I'm happy to move that, noting that I'm very, very happy for us to meet in January.
We won't record that in the Could
But if
be
you vote
earlier
for
than
this,
that,
you
yeah,
don't
you
expect
never
it
know. Rightio, so there's a mover. Is there a seconder? Councillor McCall, would you like to speak?
No, just again, thank you to the staff. I feel very, very sorry for the very few staff doing a hell of a lot of heavy lifting.
Anyone else wanting to speak? No, okay, we'll put those resolutions then, all in favour. Aye. Against, carried, thank you.
Thank you.
We have recommendations for the Eco Fund and Incentives Fund.
Madam Chair, I do note there is a application from the neighbours of Mount Watkins Reserve. So I will sit out of, I'll just abstain from recommendation 2.
Okay.
Probably the easiest way to do it.
Thank you, Councillor McCall.
Yeah, I'll also likewise probably sit out as well because there's a couple of applications pretty close to myself.
So are
Yeah, South
you
Otago.
sitting out of this
I'm
now?
not sure. Tell me, let us know how it works. So there's an application from South Otago River Care, which I'm the project manager for. So
Yeah, so yeah, this is it. So from my perspective, and it's totally up to yourselves, but when you're considering a pool of money and it's contestable, then one affects the other. So you can't, well, yeah, I can't give people advice, but if you've got something that you're connected to within the realm of a contestable fund, then you would, well, I would think you'd be conflicted by the whole thing rather than just some of it.
And generally guidance is you remove yourself in the entire room rather than just sitting out of the decision itself.
Exactly.
But it's up to people themselves or to manage their
It's a public
conflicts of
meeting.
interest. Two people have noted that they have conflicts of interest in their minds. Yep.
And you don't have to leave, you can just sit back and take.
With that, Elliot said was correct, because what actually happens is that people can be influenced by just people in the facility, you know, people watching, people listening. It's all part of the.
That's up to
So it's up to the person.
Councillor Wilson.
I was on the panel. I want to explain how this happened at the panel because we don't do who gets money or whatever. It is done on a numbers, we allocate numbers. There were 2 or 3 that I did leave the room for as I have tenuous connections to, and I will leave the table now in the same way. But because we were not deciding then or this, it was just a rating, for that reason, I could sit in on the committee, I think, clearly, because I didn't know where the other ones rated and I didn't get involved in those ones at all. I walked out the room.
Again, it's an individual what a conflict of interest is.
You
Yep.
had me noted in the paper, that's why I had to say that.
what's the bill?
Yep. Okay. Yes, I've said what I think about conflicts of interest, but that's my thinking. I'm still confused who's actually, because it's quite hard to see when there's only a meter, whether people are back from the table or whether they want to be recorded that they're here or not, or.
Can I make it clear from my perspective? I'm obviously a neighbour of Mount Watkin. So I did not want to sit in when we approved all the applications. So I thought the easiest way is for me to sit out of that part of the report or that part of the meeting. The first recommendation and the last recommendation has no direct or even indirect influence, or it doesn't conflict me in any way, shape or form. So I wanted to stay in and listen to the discussion. But clearly if Mount Watkin comes up, I'll push my chair back. Does that make sense?
That's good.
Yeah, that fit with our rules, I think.
Yeah, as I said, it's up to you to manage it however you see fit. Yep, thanks. Okay, and Councillor Wilson, what are you? You're sitting back. Okay, thank you. Just so that we can record it for your sake. Yep. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that as an intro and welcome along. yeah, Richard and Anna, great to have you. And yeah, Richard, I'm not sure if you've met everyone before, but you are, I think, the partnership lead in biodiversity. Yep, and a big part of your job is Eco Fund. And yeah, the panel will know you really well. But great to have you along today, and it's such a positive thing to be involved in. Amazingly oversubscribed again as well, so a lot of demand there. And a big process pulling this all together as well goes on in the background and keeping relationships with groups that we have funded in the past, as well as the ones that we see here today too, which is a growingly massive number of groups. So well done for all that work, and great to see this report. Do you want to introduce anything particularly?
Not really. I think we could probably just take it as read, but just to note that, yeah, it's another big round, probably the biggest we've ever done through EcoFund. It'll be the most groups we've ever funded through one round of EcoFund, and just to thank the panel for their time and their commitment to really scrutinising the applications in detail, and really positive, constructive meeting that we had to sort out the rankings. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Alan, might be appropriate for you to talk about.
Yes, well, it's not really a question, but some comments, I guess. I mean, because this was the first time I've been involved with the Eco Fund. And of course, we can see that we had some really excellent applications, because out there in the community, there are so many groups doing really good work. And it's really good that the Regional Council can support that. And we were sorry not to be able to support more of those applications because of the amount available in the fund. Because the Otago, you know, we get really, I believe we get very good value from the work that's been done through the community groups. So communities in the environment get very good value from that. The benefits for the environment, clearly, but also I think benefits because of that community building that can go on through that process. Thanks to the councillors involved, and it was Mana Whenua Rep, and to the staff who were involved through that process. It seems to me it was a really good and robust process, and a good way of working through those, because they were decisions, hard decisions to make. It's very nice being able to say to groups, yes, here's the money you asked for. It's not so easy or pleasant to have to say, I'm sorry, we weren't able to fund your project this time. So look, thank you to everyone who involved. It's a very good thing for the council to support.
Thank you. Any questions then, Councillor Scott?
Sorry, I was just, actually, no, I do have a question, but I'd just like to say that, you know, when I read this list, it's a real feel-good factor. And I'm blown away, you know, I mean, the 32 applications, but I think with 32 applications, 32 that were successful, I can't remember.
Yeah, so 49 applications, 32 successful.
Yeah, and they're getting, you know, not insignificant amount of money, you know, Torrey Mouth 37K. I won't mention it because of the council that's right beside me, for 49K. Arrowtown, I didn't actually, Arrowtown Choppers 34, you know, like these are really significant. As a general comment, I see, you know, most of them are pest control and planting. And I think 2 of them were directly water quality. So I've got 2 questions. My first one is, I mean, water quality was their #1 priority for quite a period of time. Like, why aren't we getting more on water quality?
It's a good question. We noticed that as a panel this year as well. There was a slightly lower amount of water quality applications. There is in the incentives fund category for native planting for water quality. That is another 5 or so applications, and another 3 funded, I think. But that is native revegetation, so it's riparian planting essentially, or wetland planting. I can't really account for, you know, what type of applications are coming in and what numbers. We have the catchment advisors working, you know, with a lot of these groups and encouraging them to apply. So,
cool. Well, you know, anyway, I think this is really great. It hasn't come from nowhere. It's been slowly evolving over years. So Thank you. My second question, Madam Chair, if I may. So what information do you give to those that actually miss out? Because you guys, I'm assuming, have actually graded them. They've all probably got a number. Do you communicate objectively so that they can actually learn from it and know what to improve if they reapply? Like, go on the detail there you've been.
Look, we do give a reason to everyone that's declined, and sometimes it is just a matter of you didn't score as well as the other groups.
Yeah.
But where we can provide constructive feedback, we'll definitely do that. We could say you can provide more detail around this next time, or please apply again. We always encourage them to apply again. One example would be the Limbus Pass group that we're proposing to fund this year, which is in the table, table 3.
The second one.
Yeah, so they missed out last year, and one of our catchment advisors worked with that group to explain to them how to do a better application, the sorts of things we were looking for, where they kind of missed out on the point scale, that sort of thing. And so they've taken that feedback on board, and this year they've got over the line. So we do try and work with the groups, particularly where we think there's a long-term future with the groups. Yeah,
well, that's an interesting one, because they had actually done spraying and planting before you've given them any money, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the groups are, they're all into their projects. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Just in terms of the funds available, there's $568,000 there. It seems to me that that's probably not enough money there to support a lot of community work that's going on. And we've talked about it before in our planning that our commitment to community is a very important part of what we're doing, and partnering in community works. And it just seems that this fund might be underfunded. Do you have any kind of recommendations to what the fund balance should be?
Well, I guess, it's always been oversubscribed, EcoFund, and it is consistently 2 or 3 times over the amount that's applied for than what we can give out. So, I would support, increasing it over time, definitely, provided the quality is there. And so you tend to get, I suppose, a third or a quarter of the applications where you think actually it doesn't really matter how well they write them. It's probably, there's a question about whether you'd want to fund them. So there will always be some that miss out that probably should.
It's an opportunity for you.
Yeah. So you do want some level of oversubscription, I think. But I certainly would support more funding.
And we can note that there's an annual review as well, isn't there, completed by December, and also LTP thinking before then as well. So thanks for your comments. They're probably quite hard ones for you to answer. So thanks. Councillor Forbes.
I wonder, having worked on that process with you, and thank you very much, both of you. And it's really interesting, this level of funding. Should it be more? Well, actually, when we got to a point that the line wasn't clear for exactly what we might fund and what we might not. I wonder if actually all these applications should talk to one of our staff members before they come in. Every single one of them. I wonder if that should be a requirement, because we saw some really good applicants in there whose applications weren't great, and they possibly could have been, but we couldn't quite get them meeting the criteria, and we couldn't stretch the criteria. They're there, and the criteria is marvellous. Actually, I've been on this a couple of times now, and it's so much easier. I mean, it's still a very long process. Thanks, Anna. It's still a really, really long process for us to go through them all, but that's okay, because that's just what it is. But it's now much easier to see what it is, especially once we have some of the staff advice too, with some of that back knowledge that you have. But that back knowledge is so useful that I wonder if actually everybody should go through a staff member. What would you think of that? Would it be too much pressure?
We recommend that all the groups get in touch with us, definitely, and whether that's myself or one of the catchment advisors, to give them advice. I think it's a really good idea, to be honest, but it would take more capacity for the role to meet that demand. So it would be a question of how you find the time to do it.
We've got some. We've been thinking about that for a couple of years, and each review
we don't want to jump straight to sort of moving along slowly. So we don't want to get everybody all worked up about things that we introduce new components maybe more slowly. But I have worked on contestable funds for years in other parts of, well, in Australia, where it ended up becoming a requirement that they couldn't submit an application until they had talked to one of our staff. And we got a much better caliber of application. But we also had a significant amount, much more significant amount of funding to devolve.
And maybe our funding's not there yet, but okay, that's some good steering.
I think it's a really good point for the review. Yeah, yep. And there's no reason you couldn't put that in as a criteria. We have it in the application form. We have a box for that. Have you talked to someone at OSC? They tick no, we say we recommend you do.
Yeah, should do.
Yeah, sorry on that one. You could also have it, because you can imagine it's human nature that everyone submits and gets their things already in the last few days, and then coming to you or bombarding you and the requirement to talk to 50 groups in the last 3 days versus that you've submitted, but then there's a review period for where the panel might come back to you before the final date and everything. So there's a close-off date, and then there's a second date essentially where there might be some interaction. Anyway, Councillor Callaghan.
With review, do we do a review of our criteria and of that round and how it's gone each year after the process?
Yes, usually we would wait for kind of all the admin to be done kind of through the winter and spring, get all the funding agreements signed up, and then see later in the year, early summer, we would do a quick review, a staff review of how the round went and whether we think there's some tweaks to the criteria we could use, things like that. And then we try and secure the funding for the next round as part of the review as well. We try and get a feel for what the funding will be for the upcoming round.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we have the recommendations. It'll be only fair if Councillor Somerville, did you want to move them?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Could you take them separately, Madam Chair?
I will, yeah. Okay. Somebody wants to second? Councillor Forbes. Taking them separately, unless Councillor Somerville, do you want to speak to them at all?
No, I think I've said already what I would have to say.
Anyone else want to speak?
I'd just like to acknowledge Kate's work on this too. She's sitting back at the table with a couple of these applications, and she did leave the room on quite a few applications, but her knowledge was really helpful, and also you acknowledge Ed Allison, who's also really helpful.
Right, okay. Right, well, the first one is to note the report. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Second one approves the funding recommendations of the Eco Fund Assessment Panel for the March 23 round, the total value of 536,470. All in favour? Aye. Against?
Abstained and recorded, please.
Carried. Okay. Three, notes that the annual review of Eco Fund will be completed by December 2023 in time for the next round in March 2024. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Brilliant work.
Thank you.
Particularly the community who made all this happen, really.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks. Tom.
Gretchen, I'm just wondering, I might have missed it, but have we missed an item on the agenda? Recommendation on land and water regional plan governance?
No, we haven't. It's not on the agenda anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. That might appear there for you, but it's not on the public one. Yeah.
Okay. Since the meeting correspondence.
Welcome, Anita. We have got the draft submission on the national direction on renewable energy generation and electricity transmission. Warren probably prepared this, but
I lost all of my helpers, Warren and Fleur, actually, so it's just me. Oh,
yeah.
that's scary. Warren may join us
you, Anita.
online.
Oh, Warren is there.
Maybe.
Nice, maybe. Yeah.
This has been quite a short timeframe, but really we just want council's direction on whether or not you'd like us to lodge a submission. And we have suggested that if you would like to do that, then we will run it past the submissions working group ahead of it being lodged, so that there's a process. And then probably what we'll do is attach it to the CE's report at the next council meeting after it's lodged to save another paper coming.
Sure.
So we've given you some indication of some of the challenges in that document, and happy to take any feedback if you want to lodge a submission.
Yep, Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I've got this right. So it's a change that the NPS freshwater management will prevail over the NPS for renewable energy generation. Yeah.
Yes, and so it's slightly complicated because at the moment the NPS REG doesn't, not at the moment, it's not proposing to change. It doesn't apply to allocation, freshwater allocation. It only applies to the other aspects of REG, but that is the intention. Yep.
Okay, that's the intention of it. Yeah, I certainly support that.
Councillor Meerbum.
Anita, just had a little bit of look through here, but I might have missed it.
Not too many technical questions. I haven't read the document.
It's okay. No, this is good. I'm supporting that we do contribute to this. But one thing that I have noted is that the efficient use of electricity by the consumer is a very important part of the equation. What I see here is a lot about generation, but not a lot in there about efficient use of electricity and the future use of efficiency around those things. So I'd just like to mention that to you so that perhaps it's an area that you could consider in your submission.
Yeah, so through the chair, that's a really interesting point. Some of the previous councillors might recall that came up in our RPS discussions when we were talking about, I can't even think what they're called, strategic priorities or strategic objectives in the RPS about just because you produce more efficiently doesn't mean we should keep using more and more and more. And I was looking at Councillor Forbes and Councillor Wilson because I think they rammed us over the head with that one. So it's certainly a topic that's been discussed before, and we can work that in. Yeah.
But the important thing is it's not an NES matter. It's a consumer matter. So it's not something that can be regulated. Yeah. As much as it would be nice.
Yep, Councillor.
If we decide to make this submission, I had a fairly specific bit of feedback about the allowed height of wind turbines in community scale wind generation. Over that one, would I be able to just feed that in through the submission process with this group who's going to look at that?
I think probably that's now because it'll be being
Right.
drawn up, and then the submissions group will get to refine it at the end, and that's not you, I don't think.
So
So
I'll feed that in now to say that currently in the proposed NES, the permitted height for in community scale wind generation is 30 metres. Now, feedback I have received, the advice is that really isn't enough. That might be enough for a household community generation, but not for a community scale. And so propose increasing that.
Through the chair, did they give you a number?
Suggested it was 130. I think.
130 from 30.
But I could check that out.
So basically the submission would
That's
be that
ginormous.
it was capable of handling a community scale
Of a
rather
scale
than
that
an
was-
individual.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't need to.
I think we steer away from heights, but
Yeah. Councillor Wilson.
Well, I thought it's also worth noting that the amenity isn't going to be something that's possibly covered. The effects of site and things isn't going to be so covered in that's in your update, I think, in the chair's report, where Minister Parker suggested the amenity in the reforms, and so therefore that would be consistent with that approach. The question I have, and it may be a conflict, I think we've got someone sitting around the table who's a director of a company that understands wind more than probably most of us, and whether that committee doing this can pull on expertise or understanding, or whether that's considered a conflict, because I think having someone understanding wind turbines is probably a good thing on this mission. I don't see it as a conflict, but that group, I think, has been set up to be a narrow group that at times we would have other councillors that we should be able to pull on. And that's a question for us when we go through this, whether we should be using those resources around the table better.
Sorry, what's your question?
The question is to us. I mean, Tim, I understand, is the director of a company that maybe the other people in the committee understand wind turbines better than he does, but technically, but you know, we've got, sometimes we should be, that group of which I'm on should be able to go out to those other councillors to get that knowledge potentially.
So through the chair, what we ask of the submissions working group is individually and collectively you're happy with the submission. What you do to get yourself happy with the submission is, I would say, is entirely up to you.
Okay, that's fine.
Thanks, good guidance. Yep. Alexa, was it you next?
Yes, it was, and I suddenly can't remember what I was going. Oh, no, yes, I do remember what I was going to ask. Because it seems to me that this Otago probably disproportionately is impacted by this, as you note in there. And so what are the impacts on our staff and our teams of having to consent, monitor, enforce consents around this?
Yeah, so through the chair, a lot of this implementation will be through the land and water plan. And we're still working on what that implementation looks like, but it's useful for us to know now that that's coming so that we can make sure that we build that in. It will invariably have an impact, but broadly speaking, when people are applying for consents, they're applying for more than one activity. So there's a sort of bundling thing that will happen there anyway. But we are aware of the increasing workload on the regulatory team.
Yeah. Welcome to Warren online as well. Yep, there he is. Yep.
Thank you. Sorry, I had every technical glitch you could get trying to join. But here I am.
No, we're just having questions at the moment, and Anita is doing really well here answering on this paper. Yeah, unsurprisingly. Rightio. So, Councillor Weir, you're next.
For discussion.
Oh, for discussion. Okay. Finished with questions then. I guess it would be mean not to ask Warren now that he's appeared whether there's anything that you wanted to point out about this. Anita's just basically said that, yeah, we'll form up a submission yet and the working group will help oversee that. We've had a few questions and requests already from councillors, so we're probably pretty right, but if there's anything particularly that you needed to tell us, then go for it.
Nothing burning. I'm sure, as she said, Anita's done a sterling job. So I will catch up on all these requests and get them added to the draft submission.
Nice one. Thank you. Recommendations there. You're moving, Councillor Weir. Somebody want to second? Councillor Noon. Thank you. You want to speak?
Yeah, sure. I won't lay out all my opinions about it because I'm on the working group anyway, so I'll use that. But I think the legislation, is very relevant to us. So it makes sense that we would submit on it. And sort of touching on Alexa's point, there's some bits in here that could make it easier for our staff. There's some changes we could make that would make it easier for our staff. Maybe changing certain community turbines from controlled activity to not controlled activity, etc. Some of the height limit stuff. But I'm sure we'll work through some of those changes in the working group and with the people who are better than any of us. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Weir. Councillor Noon.
Yeah, just a brief comment. Very supportive of submitting a submission to this process. The renewable energy generation framework is challenged now that our commitment to emission or move towards renewable energy, but our emission reduction targets creates that tension with the existing legislation. So I think good on the government for coming out with this paper, because clearly there needs to be a slight moving of the goalposts to be able to achieve those overarching commitments by the country, moving towards a reduced reliance on fossil fuels and greater reliance on renewable electricity.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? No? Okay, the recommendations are there. We'll take them together. Know what they are. So all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, Anita. Thank you, Warren. We'll
Thank
keep chugging through papers. We're doing good here, making good progress.
Is it just me or is it cold in there?
It's
cold.
really
It's
cold.
cold.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I just got used to that.
Then I've been too scared to say thank you, Brian.
No,
I've got all my clothes on.
I've got 2 layers of merinos on my gosh.
Good thing.
Sorry,
Yeah, it's a wait
everyone.
though, and going quickly, so nothing's there.
Yeah, we are going quickly.
I didn't keep it that way.
Yeah. Okay. 8.7 LGNZ conference and AGM. So we are looking at who will be our presiding delegate who will vote and who would like to attend. And at the moment, we have the suggestion that I think we did anyway, having read this, that there would be perhaps up to 3 councillors. Doesn't need to be 3 though.
When and where is it?
So we've got, yeah, I guess I'd be going. And Elliot has signalled that they would like to attend, as far as I know. That hasn't changed.
Young, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just.
Yep.
I don't know.
No, that's good. It makes sense.
one else
It's
is
really good for them.
Exactly.
And is
one of only
there
who can
anyone
attend.
else who would like to go to this? It's in Christchurch.
Councillor
Councillor
Watts.
McCall looks like he would like to. Yep.
I went last year.
Which sounds good. And Richard is going as well. Thank you. So then we need to, as far as I know, actually define who our presiding delegate is that can vote. Yep. So that would be me. Yep. And we insert the names of me, Elliot, and Lloyd in 3.
I'll move.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, is that right? What's 2 then?
That's you.
No, I think there's 2 that are essentially the same. One's the AGM and one's the okay. Because the AGM, we may need, I don't know the rules around that. That's probably there in the paper, but whether or not Richard might be one of the 3. No.
Yes, that normally CEOs do.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
the second one. So do you want to share that?
So the 2 is the councillor names, but the 3 could, one of them might be Richard rather than one of us.
Number 2 says the chief executive as well.
That's the conference.
But that's.
Yeah,
the-
but we insert the
Gotcha.
councillor names.
So, okay.
But 3 we might exclude, probably one of Elliot or Lloyd to not attend the AGM, unfortunately for you guys.
Can we just leave it to the discretion of you 3?
I think we might have to have specific names though that we put forward, but it's quite formal. Yeah.
So that would be Richard, actually. That would be.
So me, Richard, and shall we say Lloyd as the deputy. Elliot will be very busy doing young elected members and other things.
That's right.
I think
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah. Almost fun. We got that.
Yeah.
Changed it at the start.
Oh, the young things.
Sorry, we're just, yeah, if
If you
you
want to
share
try
the
that.
screen, that's fine. Then we can just double check that's all good.
Just share this now. Make sure.
Oh, that's the other thing, actually. There's a regional tour beforehand, and it can take 3 days by the time you've got there the day before as well. Actually, it's another opportunity somebody separate to going to the whole conference could go to the regional tour, which is mainly through the Mackenzie district, looking at things like wilding trees, irrigation schemes, pest control. So yeah, often the chairs, but I'm not sure that I want to do an entire week of.
I did it last year. It was brilliant. Really good to do.
So yeah,
They had 1 to 2. They
would
had
you
lots of
want to
councillors,
do
not
it,
all
Lloyd, or not?
Well, yeah, probably. Well, it starts running for a few days, doesn't it?
Let's just keep that up our sleeves then, unless there's somebody that isn't the 3 that are already down, that's really chomping at the bit to attend a regional tour. If there is, just come and see us separately. We can have a talk about that because it is quite relevant to the work that we do.
That was what I got the most relevance out of it.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Is that in Canterbury as well?
Yeah, it's in Mackenzie, through the Mackenzie mainly.
Last time it was in Palmerston North.
Last time it was, Taupo through to Palmerston North and all that area in between. But we looked at the Taupo regeneration, what's the Miraka company, hydrogen generation, all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
Senior notes.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we're nearly there on this
Yeah,
one
we've
then.
got-
Sharing the screen. No.
Move.
Yep, thanks. We'll just double check that it's recorded correctly, but I'm sure it will be. Sorry. Oh.
Is it the end?
No, it's good. We can be patient because it's all good. Practice and learning too. Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kylie. Well done. Perfect. Yeah. So there we go. Lots in the bowl and cylinders on the AGM. Yep. And I'll be voting. Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Did we have a mover in the second?
I was moving.
Yeah, where the
Councillor
movers?
Wilson was the mover.
I was just gonna say,
That's right. You were the mover.
no.
Subsequent motion.
I was, yeah.
Oh, subsequential motion, really?
It's the only time you can bring it up as such.
I was just gonna suggest in addition that we submit ourselves for one of the awards,
Don't know the deadline.
31st.
Right.
So 1 week from now.
Okay, what's
Potentially the Super Engaged Award for our intensive into grazing stuff. Since we've gotten so much positive feedback on that.
Joe's just
Sounds great.
thinking that is fantastic. Yeah, there might be a little bit of work in doing that, but that is a big recognition and well done for thinking of that because yes, it's is a big
I'm going to
thing.
second his motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion around that? Just thinking we haven't had much time to think about that and whether the timing is brilliant, but no, it's we've done really fantastically and have led to the country in a lot of respects in terms of the development of the technical aspects of that, and the relationship building's going really well and the uptake's going really well. I can't think of any reason why we wouldn't at this time submit nominate ourselves.
Yeah. On that, I think the nominees can possibly assist by getting some other references, and I think that's an awkward thing that you need to do, Joe. But I think that the champions around the table that vote for this should be going out and getting some letters of support.
And I can take a lead in helping to pull that together because it is an awkward thing, isn't it? To do that yourself. Yep. Thanks, Councillor Ware. So we got the subsequential motion, nominate ourselves for a superheroes award. I think it's called, isn't it?
Nominate the staff, possibly more than ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah, super.
Nominate our staff.
ORC.
ORC.
Oh, sorry. Supplementary.
And then nominate the ORC.
Work on, you said intensive winter grazing, is that
Yeah, I was just thinking that there's like 4 different awards, but the super engaged award.
Super
that's jumped
Engaged
out to me
award.
as potentially that for that intensive winter grazing.
You could do that also for community consultation prior to the building of the land and water plan.
Yeah, that too. I think would
It was
also-
not.
Or just-
But it's not sort of wrapped up. in something.
I think I will
so,
take it out, it's fun, that's
Try
fine.
the winter grazing one.
You're actually soft.
It's realistic.
He just wants an excuse to go to the awards night.
Brilliant, okay.
We'll get it from the.
Yeah. Intensive winter grazing. Thanks, Kylie. I know we speak in riddles and speak really quickly sometimes.
Change that, yeah, see that was council.
Yeah, Councillor Wilson.
Yep, that's it. Brilliant. Okay, then, all in favour on that one? Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Now, we might as well, I think, at this point, keep going. Yeah. So we have recommendations of the Environmental Implementation Committee on the 11th of May next. Somebody care to move those? Councillor Somerville, seconded. Councillor Scott, all in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Recommendations of the Public and Active Transport Committee. So yeah, it's on the 10th of May as well. Somebody care to move those? Councillor Wilson, seconded. Councillor Noon, all in favour? Aye. Against, carried. And moving on now into the chairperson's report. There are a couple of extremely important items on this one today, as we know. So first up, I want to make sure that this is the bit that we emphasise absolutely the most today, is that we are farewelling two very significant people from the from roles, I suppose, as opposed to the ORC in the entirety for one of them, and for the other one moving on from the ORC. So a big day. It's a chance for us to recognise Dr. Pim Boren and Liz Spector for the very significant work that they have done for us and for our team, and for us as governance to recognise that. So first of all, I would actually like to start with Liz and a few words for you. And when summing up the work that Liz has done for us, I found this a massive challenge because really it boils down to two statements, and that is 100% outstanding. There is never anything that Liz doesn't get 100% and outstanding. She is extremely professional, highly skilled, never appears stressed, nothing is ever a bother. You're extremely respected and universally liked. You have been absolutely fantastic, and we only grudgingly say goodbye to you. You know, but we do absolutely wish you all the very, very best for your future, and just thank you for what you have given to us, which has been a massive amount. And yeah, through the good times and the bad times, you've been there and nothing but 100% outstanding. So thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you, Councillor.
If anybody else would like to say something particularly to Liz at this point publicly, now would be the chance, but we are going to have a chance to spend some time with Liz tomorrow too in a more personal setting. Councillor Noon.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Well, Liz, in my view, you know, we've been lucky to have you. Yeah, and just picking up on Gretchen, yeah, very professional, very efficient. Nothing's ever a problem, and you had to put up with a fair bit from governance. I'm probably speaking for myself, but yeah, just wish you all the very, very best for the future. Cheers.
No, I'm going to embarrass her tomorrow otherwise. I won't do that publicly.
Oh, Alexa.
I won't be here, I'm afraid I'll be in a bit later than that. But I just think that you've done an incredible job. Your support has been amazing and it's professional. And anytime you ask a question, I have asked a question of you, I've always had a response. If it's not your department, you send me where to go. It's been incredibly good support, and I suspect there's going to be many, many people to fill your shoes. Thank you. Thank you.
I have
Charlie's feeling really nervous, right?
Doing well, but we'll come to that another day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gretchen, can I also just say too, thank you to Liz. I think, well, having sat there, she is incredibly professional, and I've done my best to test that professionalism, and she never faltered at all. So I've really enjoyed working with Liz all those years, and wish her best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
I might just add to,
Sure,
actually, sorry, Gretchen.
Yeah.
Yes, similarly, Liz, look, I'm not going to be here tomorrow, so from an organisational perspective, you're just so highly regarded, you know that. From the 12 months that I've been here, I've just been amazed at how well you've supported council and the executive. Outstandingly professional. I'm really only repeating other people's comments, but huge shoes to fill. But I also just wanted to acknowledge as well that, you know, we lost Guy late last year, and obviously you actually resigned some time ago, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for staying on as long as you have to help with the transition to our two new people. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we have a second farewell today, and again, an extremely significant person to farewell from current role. So a year ago, we welcomed Pim into our organisation as an interim CE, and you brought with you a huge amount in your kitty. So I'm going to just run through some of the things that I've noticed that you've brought to this organisation in that space of time. So you've brought in an ability to get up to speed very quickly, absolutely outstanding. It's an extremely dynamic local government environment at the moment amidst reforms, and the experience that you bring to be able to get up to speed in the amount of time that you did was outstanding. We've got massive work programs in place too. It's a very complex organisation to get your head around, such a diversity of big work programs. And as we've just spoken about, a deliberate growth period too. So embedding that and what that looks like, a big space to come into. So also recognising that I guess we've been actually rebuilding some societal norms after COVID. You can't forget that you actually came into an organisation right on amidst COVID really as well, and the changes we've seen, and sometimes we don't reflect on that, do we? But people working from home, fear about coming into the workplace again, that's the space that people are in and we're in as well. So yeah, that's quite significant. Technical ability that you brought with you, a PhD, an economist, a teacher, all of those skills that you've brought, experience as a CE in a broad spectrum of settings. So vastly experienced, and we recognise those skills that you've brought. Culture, quick to get to know the staff and retaining what was actually a fantastic culture. And you've said that, hey, gosh, I'm lucky I've walked into an organisation that has a really fantastic staff culture, which is the realm that you work in mainly. and you have managed to retain that great culture, which is pretty outstanding, I think. But also treating everyone equally and fairly, and you mention in your report retaining people. That doesn't just happen, it's not just lucky. It took effort. Team, the best leaders trust their teams and build them stronger, and I know in conversations with you, you've been keen to build individual confidence in each and every member of the team of ORC, to trust in ourselves more. You were, I think, blown away by the skill that we actually have throughout our teams, and then why are we not trusting ourselves as much as we could be here? And you've done a lot actually in that space to help us with that. You always mention we've got very good middle tier managers, and I always think, oh gosh, I wonder what those above them feel about that. But when you say that, that doesn't just happen, it's not just luck. Why have we got good? Because we've got very good people above them. It doesn't just happen as well. So yeah, there's really good recognition of our people. What you also brought throughout all this, though, that I really, and I think we all really enjoy, is your humour. Yeah, there isn't a day when you can't come out with a smile, a great story, and have a joke. And what that means is actually really important. It's not just having the joke, it's coming to work each day and enjoying it and feeling thankful for that. And that's something you've brought to. You've always said that you love ORC, you love being part of it, you love your job, and that rubs off on other people as well. So yeah, we recognise that's a big skill. So yeah, I've got plenty more I'll say to you as well, but yeah. You come from a large Dutch Catholic family of fiercely competitive sporting elite, I have to say. And, no matter what it is, whether it's hockey or golf or probably backgammon for all I know, nobody will stand a chance against the Borans, I don't think, especially collectively. You do love life, you love getting amongst, you love that competitiveness. And yeah, you've brought a lot of joy and fun and yarns. And yeah, I just personally want to thank you for the 100% support that you've always shown me and for Otago. So yeah, thank you for the past year.
Thank you very much.
If there's anyone else who'd like to say something publicly, Councillor Noon.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Pim came on board on the 7th of June. I had reminded him often about that during the last 5 months of the last training. And as Richard said, you hit the ground running, literally. We asked a fair bit of you in that initial period, and mainly because we were under a considerable amount of scrutiny, not only from the public, but from the government. We had a couple of inquiries that were about to land, which needed to be dealt with in a professional manner to ensure that we picked up on the themes of those investigations, and also delivered the message to our community about what that meant for the organisation. So yeah, I just really want to thank you publicly very, very much for the way you were able to embrace not only the organisation but the situation we were in, and your ability to steer us through some fairly turbulent waters at the time. But you were able to, and you've had 5 months of my chairmanship and probably 5 or 6 months of Gretchen's chairwomanship. And I think all the way through, whatever the challenge has been, you've been able to embrace that challenge, deal with it, make the appropriate decisions and move on. And I think the other really important thing you did early on, you made sure that you got out and connected with stakeholders, obviously our partners, iwi, which you had a good working relationship in the north, and some of the other jobs that you had, so you knew what needed to be done to ensure that relationship flourished. But also you were prepared to get out and listen to stakeholders, community members, and really get a grasp of what the Otago region was up against going forward. So I think that was really important. It gave you a good foundation and understanding of the sorts of decisions that we were having to make around this table. So thanks very much. I'll make some other comments later on in the evening that probably are more appropriately made out of the public arena.
About the golf thing. Council Scott.
Yeah, cool. I was just sitting here thinking, what can I say this one? Because I've enjoyed my time with Tom. And I was thinking, does anybody follow the Premier Football League? I do. Yeah, okay, all people follows the Premier Football League. And if anybody follows it, sort of knows that actually the Premier Football League is all getting to the end. You know, for example, and some of the teams are in big trouble. There was one team there in particular, Leeds. They had 3 games to go, and it was just whether they're going to get the chop block. And they got this guy, Sam Allardyce. He was their manager. He looks a bit like Pim, actually. And so his job was to get this football team through the Premier League without actually being promoted. And I'm just sitting, and so there's a particular skill, short-term, certain outcome. And I think to a certain degree, when I look at him, and he was handed a difficult situation, and with the ORC, it was all about avoiding relegation. It was about taking it to the next stage, you know, and like what makes Sam Allardyce a good manager seems to me, you know, he's got good technical skills, he's strategic and so forth. And then I look at yourself, you're strategic in your experience, your economic experience, your local body experience. Big thank you for that. Another thing about Sam Allardyce is he gets on with all his prima donna players and, you know, their egos and this type of thing. And I look around this table here, you've been able to connect with every councillor at this table, put them in their place, work beside them, all this type of stuff. I take my hat off to you. And you've been able to do it, I think, as Gretchen said, with some humour. So you're my Sam Allardyce, and you've done well. You've avoided relegation. In fact, if there was another league, I think you're going to take us to Europe.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Pim.
Thanks, Brian. We've got some more people with their hands up, actually. I think, did you, Kate, and then Alexa?
Seriously, you don't look like Sam Allardyce, sorry. No, it doesn't. He doesn't. He so doesn't. But I do agree with Brian, which isn't always the case, on the fact that you built relationships with all of us really well individually. And I was reflecting on the competitiveness, which isn't something that always brings out the best in any sports person. Our family do croquet really badly on that count. But I would like to say that what you've taken from your competitive sporting priorities is to make that your absolute conviction that we can be the best we can be. And I've sat around and seen change managers at a lot of levels who will go in and cut and change things in a really aggressive manner. And that's some people's managerial styles. Yours has been one of building people up and building teams. And for that, I really thank you. It's an art. It takes time and patience, and to do that and to do it constructively is an art, and you've done that really, really well. Thank you, Pim. The way you've mentored and stayed on with Richard, I think it's been a real compliment to both of you for how that's worked through. And what I want to say, as someone who doesn't live in Dunedin Central, but at least close by, someone to come in and do this from where you come from and flying in and out is a huge burden. And the fact that you've gone through some of the movies you've almost considered spending the evening watching in order to fill in your evenings when you're not at home. And I know how hard that is. The fact that you've had some family down here earlier on, down here now, which made it better earlier. I just thank you for that effort, because when you're not at home, it is a really hard, lonely place to be living out in the suitcase, really. So for all of those reasons, thank you. And yes, any nights we may bump into you afterwards, after work, I will deal with it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Lexa.
I won't repeat everybody else. I agree with everything that's been said, except about the dude that you may or may not look like. So I know who that is. But I'd just like to say that the loss of everybody else's loss is Andrew's and my gain as you're staying on in public transport. And for that, thank you.
Brilliant. Gary.
Yes, I'll be brief. I just want to say thank you too. I think you have really steadied the ship. I was very impressed by the fact that from the onset you went around, you met us all, you sat down with us in our areas where we were, and we had really good, meaningful discussions. And I have also heard too from other regional groups out there that you've made the effort to go out and see that they have felt that they were listened to. So they've appreciated that, and then in knowing that in that short interim period that you were there, that you were willing to do that. So that was appreciated out amongst the regions. So thank you. And all that.
Oh yeah, I'd just like to say something, being a new councillor as well. I think you actually live, you actually living to your own operated mandate or your priorities, because at the end of the day, the number one priority is to engage and be a people person. If you have the people on site and work with people, then the world can become your apple. I think so. The way you've approached it, I think, is really inspiring. Being a new person, the thing about being a good people manager, you can talk to people across the wide spectrum. So you got people like yourself coming in pretty green, and in some ways you've helped. You've done a lot. The inane questions, all this simple stuff, but you go to the bottom and work top. So you got that uncanny ability to work at everybody's different levels and bring them up. And I think that's how why our organisation is in good shape right now as well, because everybody is talking to each other and being quite open in the communication. So I think that's really the key thing that I'll see that you'll leave behind. There's a lot of other stuff, but it's actually it's the vibe of the place is really what's the important thing that you've left behind. So, and so, I just like to say thank you for getting us introduced, and obviously you've steadied the ship prior to we were here, but it's from us new ones that have just arrived. We've all really appreciated your input to our development, as well as we are getting upskilling ourselves to be fully involved councillors. So thank you very much.
Can I respond?
Would you like to say something? Yeah, you're welcome to.
Well, as much as I don't enjoy talking about myself, it's not entirely true. I'd like to make a few small corrections, and then maybe touch on my view of my 12 months here. The first correction, my father used to say, people used to say to my father, you're Dutch, and 80% of Dutch people are Catholic. Oh, and and you've got 8 children, I'm number 8. So you must be Catholic. And he used to say, no, I'm competitive.
That's right.
So yeah, that's correction number 1. Yeah. Look, I am a bit of a follower of the English Premier League, and I've just said to Brian, Sam Allardyce used to be the West Ham coach, and I've been a West Ham supporter all my life. And last weekend, West Ham beat Leeds 3-1, which is why Leeds is probably going to continue to be relegated. I'm sorry, Brian. So I don't think Sam's going to save them as much as you had hoped. But in any case, on the basis of mostly those 2 corrections, I'd like to just say that, and sorry, finally a third one. Gretchen mentioned that I often talk about our third-tier third-tier manager group being outstanding in this organisation. They are. I see those people as the engine room of any organisation. I've got about 30 of those people, I think, and they really, are just significantly better than anywhere I've worked before. And I've worked in organisations which have had a lot more staff than this one. But I may not have clarified this well enough. I always give the second-tier managers the credit for having those third-tier managers. It's easy to ignore the second tier And so I would like to just say that I've been extremely well supported by the second tier managers, and I've always felt that the executive leadership team is my team. And I've been so lucky to have such a wonderful team that have done such a great job for the 12 months I've been here. So look, it's never about one person. One person can only, I always say you're only as good as your team ultimately. And so it's the executive team that deserves most of the credit in terms of the value that I think we've added over the last 12 months. And we have added, in my view, a fair bit of value. It's been a privilege being the interim chief executive. I've loved living in Dunedin. I've always enjoyed Otago. Mostly my experience has been in Central. I've had family living here, as Kate just mentioned. I went to a movie last night with my granddaughter, and it's called A Good Person. And it was at the Rialto because I like to take it to movies which are a bit more arty and maybe not the ones that you'd go to as box office or whatever, or find on Netflix. But I recommend that movie. It was a bit of a tearjerker, but it's a great movie. So it's been fun spending some time with some of my children and grandchild here in Dunedin. So look, my view is this organisation's in a really good place. Thank you for those of you who said that I've worked hard with each of you. I have. I can look every one of you in the eye and say that I've had a really special and wonderful relationship with each of you. I have a huge amount of respect for every single council member. I have a view that in the 12 months I've been here, that governance has been excellent. I've been really well supported as the chief executive, particularly enjoyed my relationship with the two chairs. The relationship as a CEO with each of your chairs is really important, and I've been incredibly lucky actually that I've been able to build a really positive relationship with both Andrew and you, Gretchen, and as much as you've just indicated you've felt supported by me, I've felt incredibly well supported by each of you and the two deputies as well, actually. So look, it's been 12 months that I've absolutely come to work and look forward to coming every day. And every Sunday, I don't mind flying down too much, but every Monday morning, I really look forward to walking into the office and supporting the organisation as best as I've been able to. I think at the end of the day, my role is actually not that different from anyone else's. If I feel like I've added some value, that I've done my best, that I've worked hard and contributed to the organisation, then I can go, to bed at night and think that I can feel pretty satisfied. And I'd like to say in that regard that Liz is probably having spent a bit more time with all of you than I have. Liz, you've been equally as valuable because it doesn't matter whether you're the chief executive or in any other role in an organisation. If you're doing your best, doing a good day's work and adding value and know that you've made a difference, then it's equally satisfying. So that's all I really wanted to say, and I've been very happy to have been in this role. And it's been a total privilege.
Thank you very much, everyone that's spoken, and thank you so much to Liz and once again. It seems a bit of a downer to come back to the actual reports after that, but we'll look forward to sharing some more time with you both. Okay, so we have got some reports there. We got mine, and then we'll have the CEs after that. I just want to correct as well that I forgot to add that Dr. Gavin Palmer attended the rescue helicopter event with Pim and Gary and I as well. So yeah, I was writing this in a bit of a hurry. So yeah, sorry if there's any other errors as well. Is there anything that anyone would like to ask questions on? I mainly just put down things for your information there. Yep, Councillor Noon.
Thanks, Madam Chair. The paragraph on the second page, full paragraph. Yeah. Kieran McNulty, Minister Kieran McNulty mentions halfway through, says he mentioned that the funding model does not work with rates alone, and then he talked about the possibility of an agency for lending, potential for procurement benefits, etc. So obviously this is three waters, but do you think that's a realistic you think that will gain traction? Because it seems to me the whole Three Waters challenge is, it is about funding, and you know, for the government to perhaps step into that space, to me, that would be fantastic news. So I suppose my question is, do you think that will, the way you spoke about it, you felt that that was something that the government were either embracing or thinking about embracing going forward?
I don't know, because that's others who were there, did they get a better sense? Because it's pretty up in the air how anything's coming together at the moment. So
I just haven't seen it any publicly anywhere
no.
else.
I
That's
just wrote down what he said. So yeah, I haven't seen it anywhere else either. So I haven't heard any more on it either. Yep.
He's referring to the population base in Otago South and to get the synergies of scale, just being on our own. And so, but in saying that, he's pretty, like he said that the government, that we have to create the partnership, basically, the entity, whatever it becomes, IJ, whatever it is, but you know, that the government will step in to fill the gaps. But it's just to get the synergies of, you know, this we call it economy of scale. And they recognise that our area is probably one of the ones that have been affected by that the most.
I think Andrew's got that, but I think it's the next bit, isn't it, about the procurement and the agency for lending that part that doesn't work with rates alone. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
and no, I haven't heard anything really more in that space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm happy to move.
Thank you.
Second your report.
Yep, just noting. Thank you. Gary.
Are you okay if I just made a brief comment about our attendance at the helicopter?
Oh, sure. Yeah, go for it.
Event? No, it was just really to highlight that it's actually quite significant what this has grown to, and they come along and present to us very regularly, and that effort, of course, is appreciated, but I don't think we quite understand just how much that trust runs, the shoestring that trust runs on. You know, the volunteer directors or trustees, I think they have one employee, and then it's left to Helicopters Otago and the trust to provide the service. And we go out to the hangar and we look at the capabilities that are sitting there. And now that it's encompassing Southland, you know, when you look at the scale of it, we possibly have, I think we do have the best rescue helicopter service in New Zealand. You could possibly go as far as saying Australasia, and you may even be able to go as far as, say, the Southern Hemisphere. When you look at the number of machines, I mean, he's got machines out there now that I think he said 17 or 18 million will be the value of the next machine. He's regularly upgrading them. I think 6 of them. The capabilities sitting within those machines. They're always looking at new technology. You know, what they're prepared to keep doing, and we're so incredibly lucky to have it. Now that they have land power on board, almost providing a Southland contribution, but there are also other contributors that are actually just fly under the radar and don't really get the recognition that, say, we get. And land power, that, you know, the land power rep came up to us and he was quite humble in saying to us, well, you know, he was worried about land power stepping in there and how that might impact us as our contributor. And so I suppose my message in a public meeting is, well, we are so incredibly lucky to have it. And, you know, Environment Southland would really be the ultimate contributor for a matching contribution for us. There'll be a lot more that trust could do, but it is great to see that there's a Southland contribution there. I mean, anyone across our region could either be needing that service or know of someone who is affected by that or needing that service. So very lucky to have it, and it's an incredible service.
Thanks. Cool. Yeah, good one. Got a mover and a seconder, I think. Did we record those? No? Somebody did.
You and Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. To note the report, we'll put that all in favour, aye, against, carried. So yeah, report.
I'll just take it as read. Thank you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
Again, to note the report.
Madam Chair.
You're going to move that? Yep. Tim's going to second that. Is there anyone that wants to ask any further questions of
Is he shouting tonight?
I knew you should mention it. I might have said I wasn't Catholic, but I didn't say I wasn't Dutch.
That was a very good one. You're shouting him. Mr. Scott.
I think that would only be fair, yeah. Right, and noting the report then, all in favour, aye, against, carried. Oh, sorry, yeah, there are some appendixes to that as well, but you saw that anyway.
We did sneak it.
And then we just have the resolution to move into public excluded. We could potentially have a break after that, but let's do that. Yep, I'm moving, you're seconding, all in favour.
Can we just note the land and water management milestones report, please?
As part of.
Before we go into.
Okay, so a subsequent motion then, sorry, I didn't see your hand up, so we'll go back to that item, and you'd like a subsequent motion to note the, because they are part of his
receipt
report.
the land and water management report, the milestone report.
Okay.
Under our normal agenda, before you go into.
There's another appendix, vegetable growing. So we need to note that as well, then, the vegetable one and the land and water monthly report.
They're noted as attachments.
Yeah, they're
to this
noted as
report.
attachments.
They're already noted attachments.
I think to be fair, when I said take my paper as read, I probably should have. This is a new format that we're using that Anita is adding some reports to the chief executive report is the best way to get them to you. But we shouldn't ignore the amount of work that's gone into both actually. So they're both excellent reports. One of them the minister requested, the other one we've obligated to report to the minister monthly. And there's a huge amount of work goes into not necessarily just the reports themselves, but to ensure that we maintain credibility in the reporting in this way.
We do normally note reports. I guess they're appendixes of this report, so you could not note them, but you'd like to specifically note them.
Yes, if we could, because we did actually ask that this report was presented to the council every month.
Yeah.
When we first asked for it. So
right, that's fine. Got that in essence. Yep.
Is there a second?
Second, Councillor Wilson. The subsequent motion, then I'll put all in favour. Aye, against, carried. Thank you. Now we've got the mover and the seconder for moving into public excluded, and we'll put that all in favour. Aye, against, carried. We can closing the public meeting.